All right, hello everyone. Today we are joined by Troy, aka TSatt, again. Hey Troy.
How's it going, Jay?
Good. Yeah, so we thought we would, kind of switch it up. Ryan's not going to be on this today, and we would just kind of focus on a business. And we wanted to talk about two things. Number one, we wanted to talk about, I think a lot of people that sell on eBay, they're more just coming to it like they're selling at like a yard sale, just selling a bunch of junk. And so we want to talk about how you approach it as if it's a business, because I know that was very difficult for us.
Right. Yeah, and it was a little bit for us, and I say the collective, us being Veronica and I, because she had started this thing so that she could sell at the house, but still being able to take care of our boys when they were younger and pick them up from school and that kind of thing. But she's way too energetic and too smart to just kind of sit around and not have something to do. But even then, she's a lot more like her mom. She's much more right brain. A lot of creative folks doesn't really kind of break it down into what are our numbers? How much am I making per hour? How much am I making per sale? And, she loves looking at the results of spreadsheets, but not necessarily putting things in and thinking about how do I think about this as a business? So, that was something that I really brought to it. And then it really did change even on her side, what she bought and how she bought, because, it was fun to buy something for $1 and sell it for 10. Then when she started thinking, but how much time am I really putting into that item? Is that something I really want to be doing? Because now I break it down and I'm selling 3 things and I'm only making, like $15 an hour. I'm not really making a lot of money that way. So how can I start increasing it, start, tracking numbers and try to make it like a business? So I think it's very important, especially if you want to, make it a serious side hustle, a serious side, income to something that you're already doing. And definitely if you're going to make that jump, everybody's seen me say a lot.
Right.
Before you make that leap to go full time, it's very romantic. And I'm a numbers guy, and it was romantic to me too. This is going to be great. But I really had to sit down and see the true numbers and say, what's it going to take numbers wise? How many items are we going to have to sell? How are we going to pay for them? How big of an inventory do we need before full time becomes a true reality?
Right. Now, just to kind of, before we get into all this, I do want to say that, I'm always a little bit skeptical about how much you have to actually get into the numbers. And I personally believe that everyone just needs to get into as deep as they need to feel good about what they're going to do. I mean,
absolutely.
Like, for instance, for me, just my professional experience, I never had to do a budget, with the kind of work I was doing. So when we started selling on eBay, it was all just like a text document. Like, I kept the enough numbers where I felt good about it. Whereas you are coming from more of like a corporate background, so you were doing spreadsheets for like a big company, right?
Exactly. That's what I say. It's kind of funny. You've never really had to do a budget, and that was my job. I mean, for 10 plus years at one of my jobs, I was in financial planning and analysis. So not only was I responsible for putting together the budget for 20 plus locations across the entire country and consolidating that budget, not only did I have to do that once a year every year, we did it every quarter.
Wow.
So we would say, okay, now we have 3 months of actuals, 9 months of forecast, 6 months of actuals, 6 months of forecast. So we do a budget for the year, but then we would reforecast that with actuals dropped in for that year every quarter, and then we do it all over again. So I live in the world of the future, which is sometimes good and sometimes bad. And I love your point. It kind of comes down to execution. I think, for anybody that's just getting started, they don't have to drill down to these numbers to this level. And this is what I know. So it's easy for me to really see what the future is. No, everybody doesn't have to do that. But I think if you're not at least keeping track of some of the big basic numbers, and for me, that would be what's your average selling price, what's your average purchase price of every item that you have, and what your sell-through rate is. Those are really the 3 big keys. Obviously, everybody's going to track 10 other profit. I bought it at X and I sold it at Y and I made Z. That's perfect. But I really think that, personally, I like to do it weekly and as well as monthly. But I think for people to really see what their business is doing, you need to know what your average selling price is, what your average purchase cost is on that item, your average COGS, and your sell-through rate. If you have those three numbers, you got a pretty good idea of what your business is generating. And then most importantly, that helps you start forecasting, okay, if I want to ramp this up, if I want to go full time, what's it going to take for me to get there?
Right. So why don't we maybe each explain kind of briefly how we do things? So, like,
Okay.
For instance, for me, I think I really have more in common with the guy that sells at a flea market out of his car very often. It's just kind of cash on hand. He knows how much he can spend on inventory. He knows how much he needs to make. I mean, it might even be more like the guy that has a fixed shop in town. He's just a small businessman. So I have a text document, and I know exactly what our expenses are every single month. I know how much we pay for insurance, food, all that stuff. I also know how much we have to make for a 12-month period as well. And then I keep track of how much we sell every month, how much we sell every week. I have a pretty good idea of how much we spend on inventory, but honestly, because we barely spend anything on inventory, it's just not that important to me. And then I just see how much it's profit we make, and just because we keep our expenses so small, I mean, we've never had a month where we haven't had the cash to pay for anything. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I honestly think, one of the biggest reasons, there's a couple of reasons that's been very successful from you, this kind of me sitting on the outside looking in. One of the reasons is, with you and Ryan, you keep your costs very low to start with.
Right.
So your burn rate that you guys have on the personal side has always been low. I mean, you're doing your own honey and raising your own garlic. I mean,
and we don't have any kids, right?
Yeah. Got your house paid off. You guys do everything where it may involve investing in time for something that you need personally, like a garden, but not necessarily in cash.
Right.
So it keeps that cash requirement down. For example, one of the things that, Veronica and I do, we make our own wine. We like having wine, but you know what? I don't necessarily always want to have a $20 bottle of wine. We make our own wine. It's $3.
Yep. So
it's kind of similar. You guys have that low bar set, so cash requirements aren't a big deal. And especially because you guys are also, as I call a 10X model store. I mean, essentially you guys, buying at 10 and selling at 100. So your COGS is generally about 10% of your revenue.
Yep.
So you've always said, hey, if we sell $1,000 a week, we're good. Yeah, because you only spend $100.
Yep.
So if you need to do sourcing every week, you only need $100 every week.
Yep.
So I know there's a lot of people on the forum that aren't in that situation. If you're living in a more expensive, like you're living in California or New York, or even just living close to a metropolitan area, your cost of living is higher, so you have that higher burden to jump. It's also not necessarily going to be as easy to find those 10X items. It is and it isn't. The one thing that you guys also have is, because you're a 10X model, generally the 10X model sellers, your sell-through rates 4%, 5%,
Yep.
so it's a lot lower. So to be able to generate enough weekly and monthly income to keep investing in the business, to grow it, as well as to be able to pull some out personally, you need a big inventory.
Yep.
You guys have, all this land. You've got the building that you built, definitely, but I know you guys had another storage unit in another place. So
Yep.
You said, okay, I don't have a lot of cash requirements, and I have a lot of land, and I got a lot of time. Piece of cake for a lot of people. So let's flip it on to our side.
Yep.
We're in a metropolitan area. We have a lot higher of a burn rate, probably 2 to 3 times the burn rate. We had 2 kids, and they're in college, and we got a big mortgage and all that kind of stuff. So for us, those cash requirements become key. Mm-hmm. And also we found we don't have a lot of warehouse space. And the best way that we could run numbers was to be more of a 4 to 5x model. If you kind of look when we report numbers each week, we're generally our COGS, our sales are about 4 to 5 times what our COGS are. So I need a higher sell-through rate, which has actually been bothering me recently. So I need things that are going to sell for less money, but are going to turn over quicker. So I have to be able to forecast what it's going to take. I'm more of a buy at $5 and sell at $25, where you're buying at 10 and selling at 100.
Yep.
So for me, when I have to go out and buy inventory, it costs me more generally for the sales that I get. So I have to kind of really break down my numbers and know, okay, if I'm going to buy 100 items and it generally averages $5 an item, I've got to spend $500 a week to buy 100 items. Whereas for you guys buy 100 items for probably $100.
Yep. Because, I mean, so let's talk briefly just about our numbers. So, for instance, we've been selling online for a decade, so we've evolved and we've changed, and we go back and forth. Well, like I used to do mainly clothes, went to a lot of thrift stores. These days, we mainly do auctions. So we'll go to an auction, fill up the truck, and we basically... we go to an auction maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks, and then we go to a little bit of thrift stores, 10%, but that's really our main thing. But you're going to thrift stores every week, right?
Yeah, and sometimes multiple times a week, because where we're at now, because you guys are 8,000 items in inventory.
Yep.
And we're at just under 3, and really where our business is going to really hit its stride and be where I want it to be is going to be sometime about early next year, which is when we're about 3,500 to 4,000 items. Mm-hmm. So to be able to get there, we need to be sourcing about 100 on the low end, but preferably 150 or more items a week.
Wow.
So if you figure, okay, roughly $5 an item, and I'm trying to get 150 items, that's $750.
Yep.
Okay, so that cash requirement is a lot higher on our end for the stuff that we're doing.
But things sell faster, though, right?
I'm sorry?
But things sell faster for you.
They do sell faster. I've been. This is kind of maybe getting into some of the fourth quarter numbers. Because I'm always tracking our sell-through rate each week, and I've been doing that for a long time. So I've got our sell-through rate week by week going back to 2015. And one of the things, we were always about a 20% sell-through rate. Lately, we've been closer down into the low teens. Now, I'm expecting that to turn around. But for the past 6 weeks, our sell-through rate has still remained in the low teens. And this time last year, our sell-through rate was starting to hit the high teens and the low 20s. So that's why I like to look at this stuff and just keep a record of it. And then I can refer back to it and say, well, what were we doing this time last year? And it gives me perspective instead of just a number being, hey, you sold 10% of your inventory. Well, what does that really mean? Well, this time last year, you sold 21% of your inventory. Okay, so what's changed?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I was digging into. Like they don't give you all of the answers, but they can tell you where to start digging. And one of the things I started looking at, and I've been feeling this on our end, is we've kind of started skewing a little more in clothing because it's been tougher, Veronica, recently to find some good hard goods for us to sell. And we're going to start looking at some new sourcing options. So we started skewing heavier to clothing, and I think maybe used clothing is selling down a little bit. I think a lot of that is even on our pricing. I think I went back and looked, and I've been feeling pricing on certain areas has really been kind of getting lower and lower and lower, and I don't think my pricing on our stuff has kept pace with that.
Now, see, anyone hearing this...
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, anyone hearing this, it's going to make clear. So, 2 different styles here. I couldn't tell you any of those numbers for our store. I don't know our sell-through rate from a year ago. It's like anyone that's heard us, we list it, we put the price on it, and we forget it, and it sells eventually. And where you're much more, it's sensitive to a price, and you'll go back and change, and
Absolutely.
get
Well,
stuff to move.
and that's kind of that's it's the good and the bad of the stuff that you guys sell, because you're primarily, like you said, the weird, unique, vintage stuff.
Right.
Well, you're not you're not competing with 1,000 other sellers. Your weakness is you're only selling to a smaller set of eyeballs.
Sure.
There's a smaller set of people looking for it. Whereas for me, I got more eyeballs, but then I got 10,000 other people selling similar stuff. So it's almost like the bins, man. We're all knocking each other down trying to get safe.
But I will say, on our part, some of it is just a laziness too, or really where we want to spend our time. I mean, we do sell not only weird vintage stuff. I mean, we have a good amount of clothes as well, but we also just kind of feel what we think the price is. We put it on there, and then we we wait. So,
your lifestyle affords you that ability, because you can look, I can put it up, I can forget it. If I have 10,000 items in inventory, I really don't care, because there's no negative financial impact to me to do that. Whereas you look at us, we've actually already have one outside storage unit, primarily for our hard goods, because our basement, it's full. I mean, and we don't want to have the hoarder house where we're walking around boxes in our house.
Good.
We want to, again, we made that lifestyle choice of we want to have a house not be eBay. But now it's costing us, a couple $100 a month to have an outside storage unit. So if we were to ramp up to your level, I'd have that bigger financial requirement. So yeah, you could say, it's, you're lazy, you just want to put it up and walk away from it. But because you have that lower cash requirement each month, and there's no negative impact because you've got a storage building, who cares? Might as well make it work for you guys.
Now, I will put another piece of info out there. When I look at our numbers every week and compare them to your store, we make basically about the same amount of money every week, even though our store is almost 3 times as big as yours. So, that's the other thing. You're making as much because you're right in the store.
Yeah, I mean, because there's been a lot of weeks where we've been ahead of you, but then there's weeks that you guys are ahead of me. Now, I will say, again, the benefit of you guys being a 10X seller, you're going to net more. We were talking a little bit about net this week on the forum. You guys are going to net more than us on that, because, kind of everybody, when it comes down to it, we've got 13 different expense categories. I'm sure Mike from Atlanta's got, 37. I love that. I love him. He's the guy after my own heart.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, all of us have 2 major expense categories, which is inventory and fees. And you guys you are like us, where you also have labor. So you figure the nice thing is your inventory is roughly, 10% of your sales. Your fees are roughly 15% of your sales. So there's 25. You factor in your labor, maybe 5-10%. You got some other costs. You guys are netting, 50 to 65% on your revenue each week. Whereas for us, we start off the top. Our inventory is closer to 20 to 25% of our sales. Then we got the same 15% of fees. We got labor and everything else. So we're going to net closer to 30 to 50%.
Which is still amazing. I mean, when Mike said that people are lucky to make 10% net sales, I'm like, what? That's crazy.
If you look at Walmart's financials, they make 3%. If you go look at Kroger, like grocery stores, Kroger, Safeway, they're less than that. They're a lot of times, 1 to 2%. So you go to the grocery store and you buy your milk, and for every $1 you give them for the milk, they're profiting 2 cents.
Holy moly!
Now that you talk about a churn and burn, and then if you're cheap like us scavengers, I'm like, well, I don't buy the milk when it's full price. I buy it on sale. I go to the discount bread aisle, and then I go to the frozen food section. Everything's marked down, and I throw it in my freezer when hamburgers on sale. Sometimes wonder how they stay in business. And so, he's right. I mean, a lot of retail businesses are in that 10%. If you get up to 15, you're doing well. Right. I mean, a lot of people love Amazon. Amazon's retail business doesn't make any money. They're turning a lot of stuff out. They make all their money in other places. Their retail side does not make a lot of money. So we're lucky to have, I mean, it's one of the things that I always say, we're lucky to have the margins that we do because we don't have overhead. We don't have labor. We don't have marketing budgets. I mean, our marketing budget is the 9% that we give eBay on a final value.
Exactly.
Where a lot of other businesses, when you talk about a marketing budget, you're talking 30 to 35% for marketing, because if you ain't doing things to generate more sales, you're spending money poorly.
Yep. Okay. So for the people who are hearing this, who are like you and know how to do numbers, and they're excited about that, can you explain to us what numbers you're keeping and how do you input those? Like at what time? And because I don't even understand it, Like,
and I've got a spreadsheet. I actually took, the spreadsheet that I live on. It's morphed over 5 years. There's been 5, 6, 7 scavengers that have reached out to me, and I've made a simplified version of kind of the weekly numbers that I gather. But primarily, and I do this is primarily my Sunday activity. I mean, so I usually say Sundays is not business, but this is when I try to catch up on all the admin work. So every week I go in and I look at how many listings we have on eBay, and that's my inventory number. Through 6-bit, I can see how many new listings that I made in the last week, and I can run a download that tells me all the sales that we had last week. And then I get the average selling price for that week. So right off the bat, because I have my inventory and because I have how many items that I sold, I can calculate my sell-through rate. Right. Which I always tell people, I do everything on a monthly basis. So instead of just taking the weekly sales divided by the ending inventory, I've gone over 1 million times. I do it on a monthly basis. I also have my average selling price, and I also have my cost of goods sold. So I track those numbers, and I just plop them into a spreadsheet every week, and I've got a row for each week. So all I have to do is drop those numbers in, and then I just let formulas handle the rest.
And now on the forum, what's interesting is you're always predicting what you're going to do in a year or something. How do you predict that stuff?
That's really the secret sauce. And I've, some people have asked, and I've said, I've got a tab on my. Let me go ahead and click on it now. So I actually, technically it's 4 tabs because I'm a little OCD, or CDO, because at least CDO is OCD in alphabetical order.
Right.
I have another tab where basically I have a column for every month for every year. So I usually look at least the current year plus 1 year out. So my tab right now has the current, all past years plus the current year, plus I have 2019 out there. I've got a row for all the revenue lines and all the expense lines for our business. So, for example, I'm forecasting this month, and I'll put myself on the hook here, that our sales for September, I'm forecasting $10,000 in sales, because what I'm doing is looking at September and saying, okay, I started September with 2,720 items in inventory. We plan on listing 528 new items, and that's just based on, the speed that we've been doing. Then I calculate how many items we're going to sell this month. So I'm forecasting we're going to sell 371 items. How do I get there? I take all the items I had available for sale and I multiply it times the sell-through rate. How did I get that sell-through rate? Well, I'm factoring a 14% sell-through rate, because that was this time last year we were at 18% sell-through rate, but I know we're not that high. August had a sell-through rate of 12%, so I'm like, you know what? September's always better than August, so I'll just put about 14%, and I'm probably going to be pretty close.
Yep.
I can look at my average selling price for the past few months and go, okay, if I look in there, I'm generally in the mid-20s, so I have a $27.28 average selling price. Inventory times sell-through rate is how much you're going to sell. How much you're going to sell times your average selling price is your revenue.
Now, my question is, so how does that help you? Does that just help you sleep at night? Does it help you make decisions on your pricing? Like, what does it make you do?
what it does is, okay, so that's the top line. Then I look at the bottom line and I say, okay, well, what are my fees going to be? If I'm going to sell 528 items in September, I got to buy 528 items in September.
Wow.
Well, my average cost of goods sold, $5. Okay, so now I know I've got to spend roughly $2,600 in inventory for the month. I know what it does is it gives me an idea what kind of a net profit can I on a cash flow basis.
Right.
What kind of cash can I expect the business to generate at the end of September? So that helps us make personal decisions as well, because I already fed the business first. You'll notice first thing I did was, well, if I'm going to sell 528, first thing I did was I need to have $2,600 in cash to be able to buy the inventory I'm planning on listing. But then it drops down to the bottom and it tells me, okay, here's the profit you can expect to generate this month. Guess what? This is the money we need to live on this month.
Yep.
If that number is lower than anything that we think we're going to spend for the month, if it's lower than our burn rate, then we have to say, look, the business isn't going to generate enough for us to pay our bills. So number one, what bills can we cut? How can we make sure that we run light to be able to cover this hole? Also, do I need to go drive an Uber? I mean, I'm lucky because I still have a contract gig and it's steady, kind of like with you guys, but only mine's been like every week. So it's saying, okay, but with that and with my contract gig, I can weather the storm. Because again, quite where I want to be yet. So what it does is it brings in stark reality. Even if I'm generating this on the top line, what am I going to be able to spend in my life on the bottom line? And if that number isn't what I want it to be, then we need to start thinking about tightening the belt or seeing what we can do to generate more income. And if I want to just say, well, I'll just sell more, okay, well, factor that in. You're going to need more cash to be able to go buy more inventory to sell. So that's the reason I like doing this, especially when it tells me, since we're still in a growth mode, I like to be able to say, okay, what do I think I'm going to net in profit in 2018? And it's still less than I want. But you know what? If we stay on the path that we're on, because I'm forecasting this out into 2019, what is 2019 going to be? And 2019 is going to be the year that we start breathing easy. Yep. Because we're finally going to hit, and without killing ourselves, and that's the biggest thing about forecasting. Oh, I'm going to list 5,000 items every week. No, you're not. And if you do, you're only going to do it once. But by living, saying, okay, if we list 120 to 150 items a week, what kind of future is that going to generate for us based on what we've seen? I can start saying, okay, well, where I was, having $10,000 revenue weeks by the end of, or revenue months, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So then what's that going to generate on the bottom line? Finally going to be a lot of the numbers that not only will cover our monthly expenses, but it's enough to put in the kitty so that when we hit the low time in 2020 in that summer, I know that we've got money set aside to weather that storm.
Right. So, I mean, I get that. So I definitely don't keep track of our profits the way you are, but I'm doing it in a way where, we're renovating a rental property based on a lot of our eBay income, and I can do that as well, where I know, okay, I'm probably going to make X amount, it's this month, so I can afford to pour some concrete this month.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to put on a new roof because it's not the holiday season yet. So,
right.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's very similar. Like you said, I can't do it now. I can do it later, and it's more off the cuff. And for me, it's that build down where I can be able to say, okay, when it's tough now, in a tougher market, what is it going to take for me to get there, and what does my future look like? Now, I just have to run on thinner margins. So for me, being able to see those numbers in reality just really helps me out.
Sure. Now, I do want to ask, now what we're talking about is, so you're not, quote unquote, controlling sales or making sales happen.
No.
You're just predicting numbers based on past information, right?
Exactly. And that's what that's what what I want a lot of folks to do, because just because my numbers are like this doesn't mean somebody else's numbers. They're going to have better numbers, faster numbers, slower numbers. So we have 4 or 5 years worth, so I can really get a good idea. I'm usually pretty darn close to what I forecast each month. So, that's it's not controlling sales, it's predicting sales.
Right.
And what I do like is you can have a little bit of, not really control of sales, but you can turn the dials up. When I start seeing that my sell-through rate isn't keeping pace with last year, I start scratching my head saying, okay, is this because, here we go. Is it I have more long tail items and I just got to sit and wait? Or it starts making me look, and I found some this morning. I went, there's this one category that I sell in that I noticed and kind of smelled like it's been really slow. I need to go look at my pricing. And sure enough, the market's moved on me. The pricing on this item is lower. I'm still priced too high. This is why I'm not selling. So I need to go in and make some pricing changes, because, again, I'm more commodity. To be relevant, I've got to change my pricing to make sure I stay relevant and get that stuff out. And I need to keep that in mind the next time I'm outsourcing. Yeah, that thing you thought that would sell for $30 and $40, yeah, maybe that thing's only like 25 to 30 now. So you need to lower your prices to keep your sales up. And when you're outsourcing, you need to make sure you're controlling your purchase costs to stay profitable when you buy that item.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I hear you. If you're selling commodity items where there's a factory just pumping this stuff out all day and all night long, you have to keep up on price, because, it's not a special item, because it's everywhere. Yeah.
And you look for, it's kind of like, I have noticed, especially in the clothing market, which a lot of our stuff is, I've been smelling a downward trend in pricing, that it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. So this kind of solidified some of that. But you're also, even in trends, there's certain name brands that I used to buy that I don't buy anymore because they just don't sell anymore. And then now I'm looking at some other ones going, well, these ones are starting to soften a little bit. Plus, there's a ton of people out there selling the same stuff. So can I control sales? No, but I can generate more sales by making sure that my pricing is relevant, my photos are good, I'm following the right trends. If a new trend is out there that I need to start looking for, I need to start buying that item and maybe stop buying another item. So I can keep the revenue. I'm not really controlling the sales, but I'm keeping revenue coming in because I'm staying on top of what the market's doing. And if I see that I'm not shaping up, so for example, and I know one of the things you've talked about is seasonality. There's a great tab out on eBay, which is really interesting. So if you go on Seller Hub and you go to growth and then go to sourcing guidance, you can click on these categories and it'll show you all the categories you're in. So for example, I'll just go to dress shirts. And what it'll show you is the seasonality of dress shirts as they sell on eBay, well as what the normal price range is. So for example, dress shirts, we're in September. The low time of the year is July and August. Go figure, right? And it starts to come up in September. It spikes from October to the beginning of November, and then it kind of holds steady and gets another spike again in March. So I can say, okay, if I'm slow on those items, is the market slow on those items? And then it also tells me that 75% of all dress shirts on eBay in the used category sell for less than $20.
That's really interesting. You know what? I'm looking at this right now. I did not know. I feel this is relatively new, at least in the past year.
They've had it for about 6 months at least. Okay. I've looked before. The nice thing is I don't like part of it. So when you go to categories, click on your categories because at least it tells you everything that you have listed.
Right.
So I can tell everybody, go there, look at it, and look at your seasonality. If I click on jeans, now is when jeans start to really ramp up because we're coming out of summer and we're going to the colder months. So jeans are going to sell well. They're going to stay high for a while. And then again, it tells you price breakdown, used jeans, 73% of used jeans sell less than $20. Now, it doesn't brand by brand that's what it's going to do, but at least it gives you an idea of, okay, where am I at in relation to the rest of the market? The one downside is I noticed that there's a lot of stuff that it shows for us in like casual or in clothing. It doesn't really have anything related to like collectibles, because we were digging into that this morning trying to say, hey, what can we look at for like a lot of the collectibles? But I noticed there's not really a good collectibles market that it shows for seasonality.
So this kind of goes to what I also want to talk about with new people. They think that because in December they sell X amount of dollars, then in July they need to also, and if they're not selling X amount of dollars, something happened. eBay's blocked them, hurting them, like something's gone wrong. Can we just talk?
Sales, I'm on the bad server. Get me on the good server.
Yeah, did you just explain that coming from like a retail business background? Can you just explain? There's a seasonality that the biggest corporations deal with, right?
Absolutely. So I'll even go, every business has a seasonal market. Retail sucks in the summer. It just does. Why? People aren't in the stores. People are out enjoying the summer. They're at the beach. They're in the mountains. They're out fishing. They ain't shopping. It's just retail is that way. My old business had seasonality because I was related to the consumer beverage industry. Mm-hmm. So guess when we sold everything? We were selling like hotcakes from mid-April through September, because that's when people were buying Cokes. That's when they're buying beer. So that was our busy season. We made our year in the summer, kind of the reverse of eBay. Mm-hmm. So every business has its seasonality. We all know that. Part of the reason that I track my sell-through rate and all that kind of stuff is to say, yes, I can't compare my sell-through rate in Q4 to my sell-through rate in Q2 when I'm in July and August. So for us, like clockwork, our worst month ever is either going to be July or August. It's going to be one of those 2 months. That's the dip. Those are the two lowest months. What are our best 2 months? Generally, it's November and December. Every once in a while, August makes a strong push, and I think that's if we have a lot of good Halloween stuff or what have you. So again, and now we're doing what we can to try to mitigate that, because I don't like that big dip. So we started saying, okay, even in the clothing category, if I can get good deals on short sleeve shirts or shorts or sandals or whatever, those things will sell in the spring and the summer, and kind of balance that out a little bit. I mean, trying to run our business as much as possible, similar to like a Walmart, where they're saying, hey, when you go into Walmart come spring, it's all summer stuff. And then you go in there in August and September, it's all fall and back to school. And then it's Halloween, and then it's Christmas, and then it's spring. I mean, so the stuff that's in that store, they're doing that because that's what's going to sell at that time. So we're trying to look for things that have a seasonality that's a little bit where it sells better. Yep. Like I said, one of the things I've joked about I'd love to do is know enough about lawnmowers and lawnmower repair. Because guess what? I bet I can sell a lot of lawnmower parts in the summer and spring, because that's when dealers are going to need them, because that's when they're mowing lawns and things break. So there is definitely a seasonality. So, for example, even just showing Q3 to Q4, because I know you've talked about our Q4 spiking. In every quarter, if sales were evenly distributed, you'd sell 25% of your sales every quarter.
Yep. Well,
in 2015, our Q3 was 23%, but our Q4 was 36% of all sales.
Wow.
So 36% of all sales for the year happened in Q4, which was a gain of $6,000 just quarter over quarter. In 2016, our Q3 was 19% and Q4 was 30%. We had a really strong Q1. In 2017 and 2018, our Q3 has been up 24%, so a little bit less than average. But Q4's, 32% and 36% for like 9,000. And this year, I'm thinking we're going to be up $14,000 to $16,000 in Q4 sales versus Q3 sales. So even though the percentages, we're selling more than a third of the year in the last 3 months of the year. And then dollars wise, it really slams a lot of stuff in. So a lot of that investment that we've made, so cash flow wise, we don't look good in the summer because we're still buying and we don't have cash because we're investing in the business. Well, now all those sales come through, and now I'm awash in cash because I'm not only getting paid back for what I paid for the item, but now I'm getting all my profit and everything else on top of that. So we have a friend of ours. She actually a lot of times does a little bit better in the summer than in Q4 with some of the stuff that she has. So that's where everybody really has to see. Again, track your numbers, see how much you sell each month, see what your sell-through rate is each month, because then you'll see how you tend to trend every month so that, hey, when sales are down, well, go look at this month last year. It may be down, but that's called normal. So I don't freak out. I don't like it that sales are down month over month as we go into the summer, but I don't freak out because guess what? It happened last year. Guess what? It's going to happen next year too.
Right. And I always try and make it clear for people is that there are two ways to sell. There's a more kind of traditional retail way where you kind of follow what the trends are. So springtime, You're selling clothes. Summertime, like lawnmower parts and barbecues. And then, and so you're following what people are buying during those things. So that's traditional retail. The way we do it is we just load up our store with what we can find for cheap and know that it's all going to sell whenever that time period comes during the year. But also for us, we also assume we're going to make a lot during Q4, which is the fourth quarter, which is like, what was it? November to October to December, right?
Right.
Yep. So that's where we'll make a lot of money. We'll save a lot because in the summertime, we're not going to make as much. So we have to make sure we save money in the bank if we need to cover anything. And that's okay with us. And then in the summertime, we don't stress. We know we can't control sales. We know there's nothing wrong. And then we just start loading up our store with a winter stuff. Like we're listing winter stuff like crazy right now in the heat of the summer because winter's right around the corner,
As well you should. We've talked about getting ready for Q4.
Right.
That is an absolute 100% must. Between now and October, we should see no scavenger with a death pile.
Right.
If you've got it, list it. If you don't, stop shopping and list it. Get everything you can listed going into Q4.
Like, don't wait for it to be cold outside to start doing winter stuff.
When we were at eBay Open and you talk to a lot of the big guys, when you start saying what's your seasonality, they're 90 days out.
Yep.
So they're buying for Q4 at the beginning of Q3. So they're buying in July stuff they're planning on selling in October, November, December.
Right.
You've got to think that. I can tell you this, spring on eBay starts February 1.
Yep.
Christmas on eBay starts October 1.
Yep.
Halloween on eBay starts end of August, beginning of September. Because people, that's when they start thinking about it because, I need to buy it. I got to decorate it. I got to get it delivered to me. They're factoring in a week, So you've got to be ready for it. Get it all listed. For example, one of the things that I kind of mentioned, Veronica's been doing some more things in the clothing area because she could find it consistently. But now I've been saying, the one thing I'm worried about is we started to build a little bit of a death pile on hard goods. Mm-hmm. And I know hard goods sell really well in Q4. So I said, do whatever you can, get all those hard goods listed. If I have to, pick up the slack and do some of your items like the shoes, I will do so because I don't want to miss out on those sales. So we started planning for Q4 already. And I'll tell everybody, two main issues to make sure that you're ready for Q4. Make sure you have shipping supplies. Yep. Make sure, like for us, we're pretty set on the stuff that we have to buy. But if you have to order your padded flat rate envelopes, your regional A's, your flat rate boxes, order those on USPS today. Get them out. We have about 3 or 4 boxes. We have about 300 or 400 padded flat rate envelopes sitting in the basement right now so that we can start using them for our shipping. We don't wait because then when everybody else is starting to order them, they're going to get backlogged and then you may be stuck without having the right kind of shipping supplies. And then make sure you're organized, man. Have all your desk cleared off, your death piles done. All your inventory is easy to find. Make sure you've got a good inventory system going into Q4, because the good news is you sold something, which means you made revenue, but now you're spending time shipping. Well, in Q4, you spend more time a day shipping than you do listing. And if your shipping process is inefficient, it's twice as bad, because now you're spending hours shipping things instead of 30 or 40 minutes doing your shipping, because it's taking you too long to find your item. So make sure your stuff is down, it's organized, you can get it quick. That's one of the things that we really ramped up, especially this year, is to make sure that when something sells, we have it packed up and we can find it within 30 seconds. And usually, like if it's clothing, it's packed in under 60 seconds. If it's shoes, it's packed in outdoor in 3 minutes.
I mean,
so make sure you're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say, even though we've been selling for a while on eBay, it still is tough for us, because starting October, November, December, even January, because people are getting gift cards and buying the presents they didn't get for themselves. It feels so good. You're selling so much. It seems like stuff is just flying off the shelf at the prices we want. And then comes March, and it's just... And it's always like, it's almost always a surprise, and it shouldn't be, but it is. It just slows down, and that's just the way it is,
Yeah, it's just a retail cycle. Once spring break hits, well, people want to be, out at the beach and out they want to away from the cold weather. So good for them. I want them to live a life too, just as long as it's funny, for most of this year, for whatever reason, like Thursday has been our one day of the week that has been the good sales day. And all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks, it's shifted back to being Sunday. And I'm like, yep, because now what's happening? People are going out, they're seeing the fall colors, they're watching football, and then it's kind of like you talk about the seasonality. For us, it's the time of day. We'll get sales in the morning, and then around 8 o'clock, our time, sales die. We'll get the random sale around lunchtime because people are piddling around on their computer at lunch. And then, I kid you not, right around 4 o'clock, when it's 6 o'clock East Coast time, sales start coming in all of a sudden, because everybody's, they're off work. And guess what? Tonight, it's Sunday after the afternoon games. Suddenly, we're going to start getting sales again, because now football games are over with. So, it's just funny watching those times, and it drives you crazy. We were starting the week out this week, and we were hitting, $400 days, $500 days. We had one day with $700. And then all of a sudden, the next day after a $700 sales day, it was $180. We're like, what the heck just happened? And then it's like a couple of $200 days. Yeah. And I'm like, the weather must have got nice somewhere. Or maybe it was the hurricane. I don't know. Suddenly things changed. But
See, I like the way you think, because for me, I'm the same way. I mean, there's reasons why sales go up and down, and it has to do with buyer behavior and weather. But the funny thing is, if you are hanging around enough eBay people, I mean, I don't even fight people about it anymore. There is a strong conspiracy theory that eBay has some kind of master algorithm that parses out sales to the sellers, because supposedly if they didn't do that, then only a handful of sellers would sell everything and everyone else would drop off. And it seems so complicated. And they say that's why there's always a ceiling for what you're able to sell, because they buffer you. Now, you're in business, and you've been to the eBay Open and talked to the eBay people. Can you give us a logical reason why that wouldn't work for eBay, or why that's crazy?
Well, I mean,
tell me.
First of all, you have so many programmers in eBay that if you wanted to try to have some secret algorithm in there, there's enough programmers that are going to see that algorithm. So what are you doing? You're keeping quiet, hundreds and thousands of programmers that are working on the program that don't know this algorithm's out there.
Right.
And B, so eBay's going to limit sales. They only want to move sales from one to another. Okay, maybe on, everybody that's selling the same black iPhone case, you're gonna delist one person and uplist somebody else on the new side, maybe. But what, you really think a buyer is that much of a robot that they're going to buy your Brooks Brothers shirt over somebody else's Brooks Brothers shirt? Here's my thing. I don't think eBay would ever do anything to limit sales, because guess when they get paid? When things sell. They're not making money off of listing fees. They're making money off of final value fees.
Yeah.
When I make the one nice thing is for as much as I see that on the forums and everything else like that, and I stay off of the eBay community pages primarily for that reason. You know what? When you're at eBay Open, nobody ever talks about that crap, because they're like, you know what? I do not believe in a losing mindset where all of my problems is because of something that somebody else did.
Right.
I take full if our sales are down, it's my fault. I take full responsibility for any failings that the company, that our business has. Why? Because guess what? If I didn't get it marketed right, if I didn't price it right, if I didn't get good photos, you know what? That's my fault. And you know what? I'll even go this far. If there is an eBay algorithm that's keeping me from doing that, then why am I so stupid to keep us selling there?
Yep.
I take full responsibility for making sure that the business runs, because if I need to do A, B, or C, then by God, just do A, B, and C. So, yeah, I've never hearkened to the whole, somebody's limiting sales. I mean, it just makes no sense. It makes people feel good, because then they can point to somebody. It's kind of like we talk about what it's like to be in business for yourself. It's always really easy when you're the number 2, 3, or 4 in a company, because you can always point to somebody else and go, well, the reason we're not where we want to be is because of that person or this thing or this other person. When you're running your own shop, baby, it's all on you.
Yeah.
100%. And I think a lot of people just want to say, well, it's not my items, it's eBay.
Right.
Well,
I mean, right. I think a lot of the
pricing's changed. It's my fault. I got to go change pricing.
Right.
The market moved.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conspiracy theories are all based on one thing, and that is there's something wrong, and it's not. And if I can blame something else, then that's good.
100% agree. Yeah. And freedom comes in acceptance of when you just accept that your life is because of the things that you've done, and you've got control, and you can make changes. That it's so much freeing. Yeah. Your life is so much better, and going, okay, I screwed up. I need to change X, Y, and Z, and then I'll go forward.
Right there. Like, if anyone takes anything away from this podcast, I think that's right there. It's like agency. Once you learn to work for it yourself, it's all about making sure you have agency over everything that's happening in your life. So if things are slow in the summertime, the best people who I know who sell on eBay, what they do is they just take a vacation instead of staying home and stressing about it. That's when they say, okay, things are slow, fine, I've saved up, I'm going on vacation. This is great.
Amen.
Amen,
100%. Hey, when did we talk about my plan to hike the Colorado Trail?
That's right.
August.
Yeah, that's right. And the slowest
August
month.
Sucks. Might as well do it then.
Yeah.
Weather's nice. Sales are slow. All I got to do is make sure the business runs without me. Just hire myself out of a job, and I'm gonna go strap my house on my back and walk for 4 weeks. So,
well, so just to kind of wrap this up, so fourth quarter's coming, aka holidays. I feel for us, we're already starting to feel those sales come on. I feel our sales are getting stronger, and it feels good.
Yeah, September always starts to feel, to me, summer is 2 months long. It's July and August. Yeah. And September's when it starts to feel like, okay, it's spring. It wasn't the great time, but it's coming back.
Right.
Like I said, we're starting to see consistent $400 days. And like I said, we had a $700 day. I'm like, we're on, baby. And it still has its sputters and that kind of stuff. But fourth quarter's coming. And honestly, I usually start thinking about fourth quarter in July.
Yep.
So I'm starting to think about, make sure everything's listed. Do we have the right stuff listed? Let's go back through all our listings. And obviously for you guys, that'd be tough, but have a plan to go look at some of your older items and say, what can I do? This is the biggest time when eyeballs are going to be on your stuff.
Yep.
So what do I need to do? Do I need to tweak pricing, tweak descriptions? Do I need to get new stuff listed? Is my inventory easy to find? Get all that stuff laid out. So come October 1, it's nothing but execute. It's just crank stuff out, listings wise and shipping wise, and make a lot of green, because it's a lot easier to store cash than it is inventory.
Yep. Now, one final thing I just wanted to find out about. So now that you guys are solely doing this, no other jobs. I know that you have some contract work, but it's
Right.
not like a full-time job.
Yeah, it's just the week, right? And that's
What
good.
kind of backup money do you guys have? Like a month or two of mortgage money? I mean,
Oh no, a lot more than that. So
oh,
before I love the Dave Ramsey approach
yep,
of, getting 3 to 6 months. And, I would tell you, if you're going to go into business for yourself, 6 to 12 months.
yep,
So before I did this, I got lots of buckets. It's
yep,
kind of funny. My wife always laughs because we have about 15 bank accounts, because I have bank accounts set up because I self escrow for this, that, and the other thing. So I'm always putting money away each month for certain bills, because guess what? Christmas comes around every year. So put money in a fund specifically for Christmas, or
yep.
specifically for medical or auto or whatever. So I had quite a bit of money set aside. About a year's plus worth of expenses set aside before we went full time,
Wow.
so that we don't have that stress. Now we've had to eat into that, as we've been growing the business. That's why I said 19 is going to be the year we should not have to dip into that at all. So I would tell everybody, yeah, make sure you've got a lot of money. We still have about 6 months.
Yep.
Ratted away.
Where everything could go wrong.
As cheap as we could be, we could probably stretch that to 9.
Right. So where everything could go wrong, but you'll still have that income coming in, or you'll have that a savings, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of stuff that we've stored isn't even in terms of cash. We've got a big basement. I've got freezers full of meat. I've got a lot of canned goods. We could probably go for 3 months and not have to go to the grocery store.
Yep.
So we got money set aside, food set aside, and it just makes life a lot easier when you're going full time to just say, look, start building on that. And it was easy. It's like, how do you get that much food? Well, when you use a can of corn, when you go to the grocery store, buy 2 every time.
Yep.
If you need 1, buy 2. If you need 3, buy 4.
Or it's when things are on sale, buy a
Absolutely.
lot, go all in.
Oh yeah. I'm all about that. When there's been times that there's meat on sale, I'm like, clear room out of the freezer, because I'm coming home with hamburger, or coming home with steak. Or, my wife laughed one time because I came home and I literally had 8 24-pack rolls of toilet paper.
Wow.
She said, why? I said, it was deeply discounted and we don't need toilet paper for the next year.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
You know what? When it's on sale, stock up. It don't go bad. So store it in the basement. When we need it, we got some. So
that's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I hope everyone that heard this, especially newer people, get a sense of, the style, the ways that you can keep a numbers. And for those people coming from more of a corporate company world, all that info can be done on eBay as well, right? I mean, same kind of
Absolutely
a number keeping. So
absolutely, and I really recommend people do it, especially, like I said, it does give you peace of mind sometimes when you think things are slow or whatever. You look back and go, it's not slow, it's normal.
Yep, exactly. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Troy. I think we'll be doing this again. We'll kind of see how the fourth quarter goes,
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody's got questions, reach out to me on the forum. My email's out there. tsatterf@yahoo.com if you want to reach me directly. If you want my file, I'm going to start working on one that's a simplified version for people to forecast if they want to forecast as well. So, but if you've just got questions on how we do stuff, or questions on spreadsheets or whatever, or you want to just talk numbers, reach out to me directly.
Cool. All right. Have a good day.
All right. Take care, Jay.
See ya.
Bye.